Welcome to Up on Game presents Taylor Scouting. Coach Randy Taylor is bringing his 40-plus years of knowledge to you. This is Taylor Scouting. And now, here's Coach Randy Taylor.
All right. Hey, thanks for joining us again. This is Coach Randy Taylor, the Taylor Scouting Podcast. And just want to thank you all for watching again. We want to remind you to subscribe to Up on Game Presents, wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, whatever that might be. Also, rate and review us, will you? We need that feedback. And then follow us on all social platforms by searching the Up on Game Network. You can follow me at @RTaylorFB Scout. And we'd love to have you watch full episodes of the show, Taylor Scouting, on the Up on Game Network YouTube channel. Just search Up on Game Network. All right. So we are lucky to be here today with what I call the best dressed coach in college football. Don Pellum, Donnie Pellum, is a long time great recruiter and coach in the game of college football, especially on the West. He played at Oregon, was a linebacker. His last year was 1984, right?
Yes.
Then you got into off the field. You were a GA, then you went to Willamette University, Cal, Oregon, and UCLA. So nearly 40 years in college football, right?
Yes.
All right, brother. We can hear you too. We're all good. So what I wanted to do with Coach today was get into the portal, and I wanted Donnie because he's a great recruiter and he understands this business really well, and he's got the experience, and we'll be able to. And I think the other part is he's retired or semi-retired, so no head coach can complain about what he might say. And we're always nervous about that a little bit. So what I wanted to do, Coach, is talk about the portal with you, the transfer portal, and we'll mostly be talking about the FBS, right? The Power 5, Group of 5 players, yes. But it impacts every level. And so what I want to do, Coach, is could you explain the reaction of your staffs that you've been on when a kid goes into the portal, when they decide they want to transfer?
The transfer portal, the true free agency, a general word about the transfer portal. I believe the transfer portal is a chance to get it right. If you're a young man and for some reason you went to state, you like state, so you went to state, but you really like the university, but you chose this one, and you find out it's not the right place, you can transfer. You can be a free agent. That 1 year free agency, I can get it right. Same token as coaches. We recruit. It used to be 25, and there's always some guys that are not. They're not what you thought. For whatever reason, they're not the piece that you thought you had to the puzzle. You can help them get to a place that fits their needs. So the portal provides an opportunity to get it right. Now, with that comes things, right? With that comes when you sign a bunch of guys and you bring them in from the portal, they're like free agency in the NFL. They're leaders. You brought these guys in to lead, to start. Can you manage them? What type of characters are they? Those questions come to play. And for players, the one thing I want to say is, what about the education? Some guys, now the guys we talk about, FBS, 4-star, 5-stars, that was a different category. But right now, there's all kind of guys jumping in the portal. I had a guy a couple of years ago who transferred before the portal got big, but he transferred. Now, he wanted to play safety, 4-7 safety. High school wasn't fast enough. For us, definitely wasn't fast enough. Moving to linebacker. He leaves and he goes to a school, and I'm not throwing schools under the bus, but he goes to a school where the degree is not much. But he left the program at UCLA with LA kid who really could have benefited him down the future. So there's a lot going on to it. in the portal transfer portal. But for us, we looked at it this way: what are our needs? We're not making a living on it. We're still going to develop guys. Got to develop our core. But what are the needs? What do we have to have? If I was starting all over today, if you and I became the head coach and you're my right-hand guy and we're rolling in a new institution, it's going to be different. We're going to probably have to replace a whole bunch of guys to get the guys we want to win right now. But initially, when it first came about, we're thinking, okay, where can we upgrade our team? That was it, not wholesale. Where can we upgrade?
You said the number 25, and that coach is the initial scholarships, right?
Yes, 25 initials.
Right. And so let's be sure everybody gets that. And there's so many questions that'll come up about the 25 and how this will affect not having the 25 anymore, right?
Yes.
So the initials are gone. So now we're just at 85, right? So, and you watch this, and like I'm watching these bowl games, and there's so many teams who don't have players that played for them all season, that some are going to the NFL, but a lot of them are transferring. How would you handle that, Coach? What's your philosophy on that kind of a situation with kids?
I think right now we're in uncharted territory. This is the first time that this transfer portal and the opportunity for people to just guys leave. For instance, the guy that starts for us at UCLA could go to SC and start next year. This is the first time there's been that much fluid in the movement, and it's taken all of us a little by storm. I look at some examples of just the porthole, and I look at 2 years ago. I think Mel Tucker brought in 20 transfers to Michigan State, and those guys were rolling. I look at today, as of Christmas, 26 guys were transferred from Texas A&M. I mean, just the amount of guys moving is scary. And I honestly believe, if it was a strategy, you and your staff need to do a great job of having relationships and still developing relationships and building men. Because if you treat it like free agency in the NFL, which is, I know there's going to be some of that, and you treat it that harsh, which is nothing, it's going to be some grown man conversations. That's what this is. It's not kids sports. It's going to be the facts. But today's kids are bouncing. And at some point, where do you lose so much that you can't regain it? When we took over UCLA, Randy, we had the opposite situation. We're at UCLA, and we're going to play our rival USC, and in the rival games, you take the whole team. So the guys with the crutches and the guys with the bad arms, they all marching out there playing the drum. Here you go. We had 4 buses, but we only had 56 guys on the team. Because of the 25 initial limit, we couldn't. Today, we could fix it. But back then, we couldn't.
Do you think that today's college football, the transfer portal is kind of like the pro personnel side of the NFL? Is that a fair analogy?
I think to a degree it is. I think thinking that it is like that. It's pro personnel. The caveat is going to be once they transfer, as we know, that you kind of got to keep them. But I think it's that way. And I know from the way you're setting up your boardrooms, your boardroom used to be just your top high school players, and then you'd have a little line, and then you'd have your JC players who are getting buried in this whole process.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, now you're looking at a list where you've got just the high school guys you'll take, and then you've got transfers underneath there. That kid that you used to get, that 6'4", 205 pound defensive end that everyone passed on because he didn't look like he'd get that big, but you took him kind of as a project guy. 2 years he'll be ready. And then in 3 years, he was 250 and kicking butt, and everyone's like, where's that guy? Where'd you get that guy? You can't do that anymore.
When you're sitting in that staff meeting, and we've been in those meetings, and you're talking about personnel, it really becomes a matter of a lot of time you have to guess at what's coming now. You're not just recruiting those high school kids. How do you develop a target list of transfers?
Yeah, for us, it was done by need.
Yeah.
Where are the areas that we know right now, looking at next year, the guys that we have cannot do it.
Yeah.
So that's where it started with need. And then the other part of it is, my philosophy and the philosophy I've been a part of, we were looking for more one and done type characters. So we weren't looking for a guy that had played 1 year at one school and then he transferred to our school and doesn't pan out, and now we've got to keep him. We're looking for to come in and fit the need as we continue to develop the guys, the high school guys that we bring along.
Would you ever look, and I think that's, to me, the best way to do it, because you don't want to get someone else's problems for 3 years. Is there I don't know, is there a way? I mean, do you have to hire more staff because of the portal?
Where I was, we weren't able to do it in my last stop. But what they did was they turned their attention to the portal. Those guys were evaluating potential players a long time, right? So they started evaluating those guys when we went fall camp. So that list was pretty well completed. And then what got shorter was a high school list, because if I was not a guy, he didn't make the list. The project guys didn't make the list anymore. That's where the time differential was.
Yeah, and the JC kids, like you said, were impacted the most. So you really are putting together a board of the rest of the Pac-12 that you are kind of thinking that might be getting into the portal because they're not the starter, they're not this, whatever that might be. So how much then is it the value of being a great recruiter and having a relationship with those guys, even though they went somewhere else?
I think the relationships, as we knew relationships all those years in recruiting, relationships have given way to new relationships, or I think there's a whole nother mindset. Whereas, before, kids wanted to be developed. Before I've sat in numerous meetings with young men, and I'm sitting there with every kid that I ever went into the home of from Long Beach Poly. Coach Merle Cole would sit there, and he didn't care anything about, he cared a lot about everything you said, but he was talking about technique and development. I think that's kind of out now. And so now I think the relationship, and I think this is where we really can pay attention. I think there's a lack of relationships, because guys and they recruit them the same way, and you're my buddy, and then they take off. And I think there's something growing that's bigger than the good old relationship. I'm gonna develop you that we used to see.
Well, how do you see the culture in the locker room going? I mean, how important is that as a staff, and how do you handle that?
I think that's one of the mysteries of the portal, because we know whoever we bring in is a leader, right? It's got to be a starter. The guys on that team are sitting there going, okay, they brought you in and you're a wide receiver, so you're supposed to be the starter. Now, I've been here, I'm gonna fight you, but you got instant credibility. And I think it's hard. I mean, we brought in the guys we brought in, I think maybe 9 or 10 guys a year ago. Most of them are graduate students. Those guys were squared away guys.
Yeah.
But every transfer is not that. There's a lot of guys that are there for a reason. I'm here to play, get mine, and move on. And I think the locker rooms are going to be a problem.
Yeah. You have to recruit the kids currently on your team when you bring someone in to replace them. Is that fair to say? Is that the process?
I think that's very accurate. I think I think the whole staff and has to continue to recruit guys. You have to, because even when you do that, if they're not feeling that they're getting what they need, they may take off anyway. What's really interesting when you watch the new staffs, how many times a new staff shows up and the new staff brings in their guys, and then at the end of the year you see all of these guys taking off, and I brought my new guys. Now the guys you brought, how long will they be there? And you just disrupted the class structure, your numbers.
Yeah, I think when you watch with Deion Sanders going into Colorado, I think that's going to be a huge thing for them, is they may have this great transfer class, but they're going to lose some kids. And maybe, I mean, it is better players are better players. You win, you stay at the school. But it hurts the culture, and it can hurt in a lot of different ways. But we're all doing it, or everybody's doing it. And so I'm sure every staff meeting about recruiting, about players, there's a discussion about will he fit?
Yeah, will he fit?
Right.
And then, someone's got to tell him where he is.
Yeah.
Someone's got to say, you know what, if you want to play, you need to go here or there, because right now we just don't see you fitting. Tough grown men conversations, those are tough.
Yeah,
Some
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Grown man conversations is right. That's the part that a lot of us didn't have to deal with before the portal. That you needed 85, you need to practice, you had to have bodies and all that kind of stuff. Well, so now the transfer portal has the windows, right? This year is December 5th to January 18th was the first portal window when they could get in. And if you go and look at 24/7 Sports or one of those, you can see all of those kids coming from this school, and where they're going to go. And then another one, April 15th to April 30th, and that's kind of that beginning of that spring recruiting. And so how do you think that's going to impact? Is it going to help, or what do you think on that, the windows?
I think the windows are good because it defines a period. Yeah. The player is like, okay, you know what, it's December 5th, so the season is over. The bowl bids have happened. If you're a player and you weren't playing a whole lot, okay, but you got some practices for the bowl practice, you get some extra time in there. You're getting a chance to figure it out. Now, you also get a chance to go home for Christmas. So if you're in a bowl, you got the bowl picture. But if not, you go home for Christmas and really talk it over with your family, your folks, and go, hey, I'm going to transfer. So that part's good. Now, the 18th only gives the colleges 2 weeks really to fill those scholarships. So the colleges are probably going, earlier January, shut it down. But it's a fair period. That's a fair. That the second period is really good.
Yeah.
You notice, because all of a sudden we're in spring. Winter, you buff up, you get ready. And then you go to spring practice. You have those 15 practices. You have those days in between with all that film work. And all you're doing as a coach is evaluation. So at the end of the period, right before that second transfer portal period, you as a coach, you've sat there, you've talked to them, and they know Okay. Before you go on the road recruiting, you've had those conversations. And you've taken that piece of paper, right? And you're going to check it out. We've evaluated you every week. Here's where we are. We don't think you can do it. But when you go on the road recruiting, that kid has to make a decision to stay.
Yeah. And then when you tell that kid that he's not going to make it, then how does that high school coach where he came from react to you the next time you come in? I mean, there's so much more to it.
There's so much more to it. And I didn't have to do that because there wasn't a lot of it. But moving forward, there's going to be a ton of collateral damage.
So there were more than 3,000 FBS transfers in this past cycle. What do you think? What's the number going to be? Is it going to go up or down?
I believe the number's going up. No question it's going up. Last year, there wasn't a lot of scholarships. I believe there'll be a few more scholarships this year because the lower level team did not sign as many high school kids.
Right.
I think even they're figuring out it's a trickle-down effect. There's not enough scholarships for all these players that are jumping in here. So some are going to fall through the net. If we just kind of hang in there, we'll get a couple guys that are probably really good for our level.
Yeah. What about so you're developing this target list and this, like I said, the pro personnel board, and you're trying to figure out how to get to these kids before everybody else does. There's a lot of back channels involved in this process, wouldn't you say? That was a nice way.
Can we say it this way? Everyone's talking about the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Honestly, and you and I know it, and everyone knows it. No one will say it. I'll say it because I'm right now. I can't. You can't say porthole without NIL
Yeah.
tied together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we say back channels. Yeah, there's a whole group of folks that are involved. You know, people think when someone goes into the transfer portal that they're just going to the transfer portal.
Yeah.
It's not true. Most of the players, when they, in fact, the bigger name, the bigger star players, they already know where they're going, or they've already contacted schools before they give their notice. They already know. I mean, this is already going down. This guy's knowing that if I go to this school, I'm going to get X. There's real agents involved now, right? Real agents calling. They're going. They're saying, here's how they do it.
Yeah.
I'm calling and I'm representing Randy. Okay, who do I need to talk to? Get on the phone, and they go, Coach, I'm representing Randy. What's the number? That's all. What's the number? Okay, well, such and such number is this. Such and such number is this. What's your number? Okay, Coach. I'll be in touch with you.
How would you fix it? I mean, what would be your advice to stop the it could be called poaching, or it could be called agents, or it could be, is there a way to fix it in your mind that would make it be more like college football, if that's even possible?
I honestly believe they let the cat out. They let the cat out the bag.
Yeah.
You figure right now, the NCAA, which once governed everybody and kept the players as amateurs and boosters, and people couldn't get to them. Now, boosters can sign contracts with them, and the university don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no governing body because it's done by state. So it's happening now. All of a sudden, the state's happy. Why? Because they're taxing them. Great. The fans happy. I think they're happy. Why? Because they're getting some money. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, great. The university is thrilled. Why? Because there's no liability.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy, and it's like, hey, who's thinking of the student athlete? Who's thinking of all this stuff's happening? And let's just say that if at one time there was more 3-stars in the NFL than 4s and 5s, and however that works out, but if the 4s and 5s are getting all the money, then those kids aren't making it, what is the trauma what are they gonna experience? Instead of, you've been taken care of, and then boom, it's gonna be really interesting. But I'm not sure how to fix it. And I will say this: the NCAA at least tried to go to Congress.
Yeah.
Because it's too big. It's too big.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, before we go, I want to find out if you and I can start our own 7-on-7 and lineman groups. You ready?
Yeah, just like hey, Randy, you know one thing we talked about that the 25 initials a little bit.
Yeah.
So that is like the game changer.
Yes.
That one's the game changer, because if you're an incoming coach right now,
yeah,
the only way you get on, no one's giving you 5 years like they used to develop your team. So where you used to say, you know what, Coach, you tell the AD, I need 5 years, and he can give you 4. Now you come in and they're going, you got 2 years, we want to be in the championship.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're going, or if you're a coach that's been there, if you're things are bad, this is your freaking lifeline, because you can push guys out and get new guys in, and the best thing for coaches today is to bring them with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what Dion did and others do. And so the question then, my last question is, well, I kind of lost my thought, but with the elimination of the 25 and just working on the 85, do you have a red shirt, or do you want a red shirt anymore?
Think you red shirt, they kind of changed that red shirt rule. We tried to try some kids early, but watch the 4 number, right? The 4th game. We tried to see where they were, and if they looked like they were going to help or injury happened, kept them going. If not, we pulled it off. I think they should just let all these kids play. Just let them play. Let them play 5 years. I mean, let them play. You're on
Even
scholarship.
if they're start on special teams for a year, and that helps the speed of the game. I've always thought that playing them as freshmen was better because then sophomores, they're better players. But yeah, you just have to figure out how you can make everybody on your team happy.
Yes.
Or some unhappy, so they leave. And that's not the right way to put it, but you get it.
You know that new aid rule that they just put in,
Yeah.
Which sounds like lip service, right? It sounds like you get a transfer, and once I transfer to Randy's university, he has to keep me, right?
Right.
That's a significant rule because it's been that way, but it's been abused.
Okay.
And now that they've made a stand, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that as teams move people around. That's going to be a
yeah, because they're on now you're on the hook for that scholarship money for at least a year. And so it's a crazy world, and I'm glad to have you on here because you're closest to it and have seen it, and your ideas about recruiting are kind of similar to mine, and I just think this has been helpful to me. It's been helpful, I think, to the folks watching us. And I really appreciate you being with us, Coach Pellum. We're about ready to wrap this up, but I want to remind everybody to subscribe to Up on Game Presents on the iHeartRadio app, the Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, remember to rate and review us. Follow us on social platforms on Up on Game Network. Follow me on R. Taylor FB Scout. Coach, do you want to be followed?
No, Coach, not
Okay, all right, great.
But I appreciate it.
Yeah, watch full episodes of the show Taylor Scouting on the Up on Game Network on YouTube channel. Just search Up on Game Network. And before we go, Coach, one of the things I want to do is the Taylor family just is sick about what happened to DeMar Hamlin. And that poor young man, and that, so we want to just say a prayer for those from the Taylor family and just, the young man that got hurt in the hospital from the Buffalo Bills. And so we're all saying prayers for him as well.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
All right, brother. I appreciate you being on with us. You take care of yourself.
Okay, sounds good, man. Happy New Year.